everybody. How are you guys doing on today? I am a super duper excited because we get to hang out with professional audiobook narrators on today, Theresa Bakken as well as Maria McCann. They are both hanging out with us on today, and that's always exciting. And of course, if you guys don't know, June is National Audiobook Appreciation Month. So we wanted to, here at the cafe, spotlight some audiobook narrators who bring us some amazing stories and bring these books to life via audiobooks as well. So we have Theresa Bakken as well as Maria McCann. I'm going to allow them in just a bit to introduce themselves. And of course, if you're hanging out with us here at the cafe, you already know what to do. Like, tag, and share. Tell a friend to come on down, hang out with us as the cafe at the cafe as we talk about audiobooks. Theresa Bakken and Maria McCann, welcome to the cafe, my friends. And we will start with Theresa. Please introduce yourself to our friends.
I'm so glad to see you again. I forgot how high energy you are. I just can't, right, Maria? I'm just in instant smile mode. I'm so happy to see you again and spend time with you. I've been working as an audiobook narrator for about 3 years. And I've done a bunch of different genres. I end up a lot of times in sort of cozy stuff. I have kind of a softness to my delivery. So that's where I end up getting cast. And that's kind of what I like to audition for sometimes too. I'm fortunate in that Maria is not just one of my dearest, bestest friends in this business. And we attended live in person this huge conference this spring with hundreds of other narrators and producers. It was really fun to be in person. But she's also one of my coaches. And so I think one of the coolest things about my experience so far in audiobooks, Angela, is that there's just this network of people lifting you up and helping you grow. It's such a huge growing industry. Like, I'm sure you know that as you work in the book world, that audiobooks are just like booming. But what I love is that there's a community of narrators across the whole industry that really lift each other up. Maria is one of my favorite people. And she has helped me. Her background, I'll toss it over to her so you can hear about her background. My background was from broadcast journalism. So I really needed help in developing characters. You know, narrators are acting every single part. And Maria comes from that rich background. And so she's helped me grow in that way. You want to talk a little bit about your background?
Did you mention you're an Emmy? Isn't it an Emmy award?
It is an
right,
Emmy.
She left that off. Yes.
Thank
Emmy
you.
award winning.
No slouch there. Hi, I'm Maria McCann. I have been an actor since I was 16 years old. My first commercial was with Keanu Reeves back in the day, and for MTV back then. But I did a ton of film and television, Grey's Anatomy and all that. I'm blanking right now, and commercials and stuff like that. And came into audiobooks a couple years ago. There was a mentor who said, I get to act every day. And thank goodness my camera was off. I burst into tears at the idea that I get to act every day now. And I've been a coach for auditions here in Los Angeles for film and television for 20 years, and coaching for the narration world. It's the same. It's storytelling, and it's connecting to your characters.
Yeah, Maria's done a lot of different genres as well. Can you talk a little bit about, Maria, what sort of books you've been working on and what you're working on right now?
Ooh, I'm a big self-help voice, but I also love to do accents and multi-voice things. But I think you're hinting about. I am so lucky right now. I'm working on a book for a publisher, Dreamscape, for Feminist Press. The feminist press, they promote voices on the margins of dominant cultures, and they publish feminist stuff to lift people up. And you might not know, but I'm half Mexican. I grew up across the street from my abuelita, and so this book came up about a Mexican-American main character. And it's so exciting because as an actor on camera, I could never play. We took my mom to the mariachi festival on Saturday. Like, I could never play like my culture, how I was raised. So, but with audiobooks, I'm able to tell this beautiful story and use my background to do so. And it's called Give It to Me, the book.
I love that.
Yeah, and Angela, Dreamscape is one of those publishers that narrators love to work for. They have producers and casting directors who match narrators to story in really thoughtful ways. And so what Maria's talking about is just one of those gifts in narration when you can work for a publisher that puts that as one of their priorities. And I interact with Dreamscape through my podcast, through Desideratum. They're one of the sponsors. And so I know that they do a lot of work to help spread audiobook love to the community of listeners. They have, if you go to their dreamscapepublishing.com website, you can subscribe to a newsletter that lets you know, like, here's what's coming out next. Here's what we're excited about. Here's what's winning awards. You can look for Maria's work coming up in this book that she's just describing. There's a nice newsletter that gives you kind of a, here's what's next. And they have giveaways too, which is another wonderful thing for introducing listeners, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
it's
that.
a
And guys,
privilege to
there
work
you
with
have
them.
it. We'll be sure to put that link in the comment section as well, so you can go and
Yeah.
find that, because again, it's nice finding out more information for the audiobook world as well. Now, Theresa, if I'm not mistaken, you're also a little bit of an audiobook or an audio ambassador in the industry or what have you. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that works?
Yeah. Thank you, Angela. I do. I think
Because you've done
ambassador is
like
such a
author
nice,
panels and stuff like that about the
yes.
audio world.
That is one of the ways that I've been lucky enough to connect with you. I think, a lot of people are interested in knowing, a lot of authors, I think, are interested in knowing how can I, especially those that are independently produced, how can I access audiobook as a format? So I have gotten engaged and involved in different conferences for authors that sort of answer questions about getting through those gates and figuring it out. Because I don't think there's as many roadblocks as people assume there are. Maria's in her home studio. I'm in my home studio. Narrators a lot of them are entrepreneurial, independent workers and are happy to partner, and collaborate with authors. So yes, I've done some of that. And then I also do this great, I'm really lucky to do a podcast that it's called Desideratum. And every week it showcases an audiobook. So I usually am interviewing an author, but sometimes I also interview narrators like Maria, and you get to hear a little bit about what goes into the process, what the authors were thinking as they wrote these stories, how they feel about bringing it to the ear, bringing it to this. It's another art form. So I love that you're celebrating it this month. I think, human storytellers and human audiobook narrators, it's something good to be lifting up. So thank you.
Yeah. With all the AI.
I love that. Oh, go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and her podcast is so good. I was not a good friend at first and didn't listen, but if you do love about writing, I was like, man, girl, this is so good. This is so fascinating. Every interview is so well thought out and really satisfying. And I agree with you. I mean, for people to audiobooks, I think sometimes feels like cheating to people who love books in print. And I just want to say too, having reviewed 100 books a year, 50 listened and 50 read, it's the same part in the brain. I can't tell you after I finish listening whether I read it or not. So yeah. I became a lover of audiobooks for sure.
I love that. And Maria, one thing that I discovered lately is that, and I've said this, audiobooks is like a whole nother level of reading. Oh my goodness. And to be able to hear the characters, to be able to just see the whole thing kind of like come alive is like amazing. Guys, if you are just joining us, I am hanging out with professional audiobook narrators Theresa Bakken and Maria McCann. Guys, they are hanging out with us on today. Of course, like, tag, and share. Tell a friend to come and hang out with us as we talk all things audiobooks. Now, I want to ask you and Theresa this, Maria, when you think about your journey as audiobook narrators and creative in that space, because again, you guys are bringing these characters to life and you are narrating these things or what have you, would you say, and Theresa, you can answer and then we'll have Maria to answer, would you say audiobook narration found you or you found it? How would you say for that?
Angela, that's a fun question. I guess a little bit of both. Like, I'm going to fall back on this. I'm a mom and I've been reading out loud to my children for decades, and they are all out of the nest and gone. And I think um, I started to think about ways that I could be productive and engaged. And I've always really loved story. And I think audiobooks just sort of were bursting on the scene for me. I was just hearing more about them. I was seeing more people. I was interacting with more storytellers, and realized that it was like Maria touched on this just a moment ago, that when you get in the booth and you are reading, performing a storyteller's work, you start to live it in a way and engage in a way that's extremely satisfying. It's exhausting, but it's very satisfying. So yeah, I guess I was just in a good place in my life for something new and different a few years ago. And COVID, I think honestly, the pandemic and things shutting down amplified maybe the opportunity for me. I didn't have to be close to a professional studio on one of the coasts. I'm in Colorado. I could put in a little soundproofing and start exploring it as a career. And that was a gift. And it's just been, I just love it. I just love doing it. I love interacting with people that do it. I love interacting with the storytellers and the authors. Right, Maria? Like, don't you think it just, as a community, also, it's a great place to be?
Yeah, my husband has written a novel. It is such an honor to be entrusted. I loved what you said, Angela, about it, like being next level. And when it's a great narrator, it transcends it. You know, I was listening to the fabulous Marin Ireland. She's a great narrator, and laughing in bed. And one of my friends said, I didn't laugh at all in that book. I'm like, well, then you didn't hear it the way I heard it, you know?
Right.
So that's what we're trusted with, knowing what the writer wants, and we have to get into their head. And then it's about not judging each character and loving each character in the book too, and committing to being all of them. So yeah, I love it.
That is super cool. I love that. I love that. Now, share with us a little bit, and Maria, you can answer this particular question first. For you, what are some of the different dialects that you do with your characters or what have you? And I'm sure that's fun, by the way.
It was funny. I was on the phone with the bank, I think, and I was like, well, I do Russian sometimes, you know, like and I can do my grandmother or whatever, you know, you can just jump from, you know, I can do many, many different ones. And I love it. And the Irish, you know, you can jump in whenever you want to. So yeah, it's some people have an ear for it and a love for it. And I'm definitely one of those people.
Yes. I think it's something that's again part of that continuing education.
Cool.
That's again part of, like, you continue to learn, you continue to grow, you continue to take on jobs that help you, you know, pursue that. Maria's amazing at that, actually. And I think finding voices for characters is about finding the intent for those characters, which is what Maria was saying, is really understanding the author's intent, the author's their vision for that character. It's more than just an accent or a voice, you know, where you're placing the voice. It's so much about their character. And Maria's excellent at that. And I love that you mentioned Marin Ireland. I think there are audiobook narrators out there that I could listen to any of their work. You know, I think if you're new to audiobooks, like Maria, who do you think, like, if you've never listened to an audiobook before, other than Marin, who you just mentioned, who else do you think people should like? Yeah, who else?
Pete Cross and January Lavoie
are
the two. They're like my king and queen of characterization. Pete Cross, I recently listened to a book he did, The Lights of Prague. They do a lot of fantasy for a good reason. And there was like 4 British guys on a street arguing, and I could see each of them. And it's just like, how does he do that? He's really great.
Yeah, I think January, the last thing I listened to hers was that Thistlefoot, and there's again, it's sort of it's fantasy, and there's a voice, a character that is a house. And if you've ever wondered what a house that actually, it's part chicken, it's a chicken house. There's a voice for it, and January knows what it is. So yeah, there are, and I've had others on the podcast that I feel like just Gail Shallon, like the next episode I have coming out is this book Cantica, and it goes through 4 different countries. And language, and she even sings in this one. I don't know if you've had a chance to sing in an audiobook yet, Maria, but that's a special kind of challenge, and I think Gail does a beautiful job.
I did just recently sing, and
I love it. And guys, take notes because they're even giving you some names.
Some ideas.
Yeah, you've sung recently too, haven't you?
Yeah, it was a Raleigh Waters mystery that just came out, but and it's about a guitar player who's kind of washed up, and but he's a detective now. And so it was fabulous because the author had written a song years ago that he included in the book. So he sent me the song, and I had to sing it as if I was a male jazz guitarist. But yeah.
You get to play all the parts.
That is super cool. So as you can see, guys, audiobooks are like alive and in color. And of course, guys, if you are watching and you have a question for Theresa and Maria, put it in the comment section. We'll be sure to include you on that as well. Now, both Maria and Theresa, we see that you guys are in your studio, which is super cool, by the way. Let's talk a little bit behind the scenes. And Maria, we'll start with you. Kind of share with us what is some of Maria McCann's must-have, or what she needs in the studio before she gets ready to get in her flow and to start recording.
I never knew my mouth made so many sounds. It's just frustrating. So I have my special cough drops. I have my mouth moistening spray. I have like a ventilator kind of thing that I can use, and water with some water on the side and some water. So it's an instrument that you have to kind of do what works for you. So what about you, Theresa?
Yeah, same. I think also there's a real importance to warming up the instrument. Like, I think that's a great analogy to call your voice an instrument. And so there are vocal warm-ups you can do, and also just even the musculature, the shape of your lips and your tongue, and getting things ready to be used, right? And then not overtaxing it. I think sometimes the assumption from a listener is that we could just sit down and read for 8 hours straight. And that is, for me, definitely, I don't have that kind of stamina for reading. I'll trip it up and make mistakes and hurt the instrument. So it is something you have to go in and warm up for. And also, I think what we were just talking about, characters, is so important, because sometimes as you're deep in a book, you could have a character that is using a part of your throat it's an older woman or it's a man, and you're playing a part of the instrument that you don't play in your everyday life, right? So you have to be careful with your instrument in that way. And so that's a great question, though. Also, chapstick, mouth noises. The microphone is so sensitive and picks up everything, and if you're not hydrated, it knows. If your stomach is making noises, Angela, you'd be amazed at the kinds of noises we capture. Like, gurgles and snarls coming from your stomach. You're like not hungry enough, or shouldn't have had a glass of, shouldn't have had that dairy maybe before I sat down. But it is. There's some technical aspects to it. That's a very good question.
And speaking of characters, Myra Cook had a question. She wanted to know, how do you practice for some of these characters? Theresa?
Well, if I have a challenging section of a book that I'm going to audition for, I reach out to Maria and I say, Maria, could you help me? I do think it's really good to have another set of ears, especially a really experienced set of ears, someone who's been in the acting business a long time. I also think I sometimes sort of audition characters. I might record something in a scene where 2 characters are talking to each other, and then listen back and tweak it, and think, I really want that woman to sound warmer. I want her to sound warmer. I want her to be more compassionate, or I need her to be a little more biting and sarcastic. And so sometimes I think it is, before you really get into a book, there is a lot of prep that happens, not just marking the script, but really making little voice files for each of your characters, so you can go back in chapter 9 when that first character shows back up again. You can be like, where was that? You can go back and listen and know boom, that's how I find it. Do you think that's accurate, Maria? Like, do you do any of those?
Yeah. Wow. What about you, Maria?
Yeah, same kind of thing. You know, you got to read the whole book, and it's fun to write down not only what the person says about themselves, but what everybody else says about them, right?
Yes,
And then, like
right.
you're saying, I've done series, right? And they bring somebody back from book one. It's like, oh God. So you do have to be very, very careful about your choices. And also, like you're saying, like Scottish, you know, you are a guy, you can't have all this gravel or something, and that be like somebody that you're doing
A
for
lot. Yeah.
majority of the book. You'll be
Right.
ruined. So but I do think that I love that idea of practicing, but I think it's about having empathy for each character and making a decision about who you think they truly are. Even bad guys, the worst people
Mm.
in the world think, you know, Hitler thought he was doing everybody a favor, you know, like, yay, you know. So it's not judging your characters, but also just trying to get into their mind space and be compassionate with them, I think.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Thank both of you for answering that question as well. And we had another question. Let's see. This is Readers Got to Read. She wanted to know, have either of you recorded children or teen titles? Have any of you guys done any of those type of books? Or even YA books? Or what genres have you guys did recently or what have you? Maria?
Yeah, I did do one children's book, and it was so fun, and it had you know, different like she had different fairy you know, drawings, something that she had originally written for her kids. But I love, you know, what I didn't know I loved until I started narrating is paranormal women's fiction. It's a whole genre with werewolves and vampires. So I've done kind of like young adult shifter stories or whatever, and each one has its own rules. Like I have so much respect for those writers now because
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
fantasy is very like they have to make the world make sense.
Yeah.
It's and so then you get on as part of the ride. So yeah, I've done a little bit of both. How about you, Teresa?
You know, I've done one series of YA, and there was a witch and there was a bullfrog, and I do remember feeling like I could play, like my palette of color for play was broader because you could be a little more over the top in delivery. And so that was fun. And that's actually that's a challenge for me because I think
Mm.
I stay in control a lot. So having a character that forced me to pretend like what does a bullfrog sound like? So that's a
Mhm.
right. And to act those things is a challenge. So yeah, I think that the YA genre in general is just booming. I think there are a lot of people working in that genre, a lot of authors who've written in that genre seeking out audio as a way to reach new readers, new listeners.
Yeah, they've got a lot of really
No,
enthusiastic fans, and young adults don't want to be talked down to. So you got to take those books really
Yes.
seriously. What were you going to
Yes.
say? Oh, sorry.
no, I was just gonna say for both of you, in being in, audiobook narration and stuff like that, what does a typical day look like for you? Because I'm sure you're not like in the studio like 8 straight hours or what have you. So what does that process look like as far as being in the studio? Like, is there a certain amount of time that you set aside for for recording or what have you? What does that look like, Maria?
I just wanted to say, yeah, it's funny because sometimes for authors, when they're doing an audiobook, you know, a rate maybe 300 per finished hour or whatever, and they $300 an hour. No, it's not $300 an hour because there's the prep time, there's the recording time when you're the producer, like we are, and fixing your mistakes and proofing and mastering. So, you know, a finished hour, if you're really great and you do all of that, it could be 3-4 hours, just depending. So yeah, if you know, with kids, husband, I take care of my mom, you know, if I can get one good finish hour every single day of my life, Saturday and Sunday as well, that's great. But I usually, or two, but that's about all that I can accomplish. What about you, Teresa?
I think that's a really great point, that when someone looks at the finished hour, you know, the way that audiobooks are priced, or the way that we write our contracts, that what that represents is a lot of behind the scenes work. It's not just turning on a recording device and performing. You know, there's a lot more that goes into it. So yeah, I think I probably spend like Maria was saying, maybe one of those 3 hours is recording and the other 2 are some form of producing, some form of prep. That's pretty common for narrators like Maria and I to be wearing a lot of different hats in the studio, also understanding the technical aspects of things too.
Mm-hmm. Now that brings me to my next question, and both of you guys have mentioned like the prep. What does that look like? Like when you get a project, you have the book, and I think Maria was saying that, of course, you know, you need to read the whole book first, all of that good stuff to, you know, really get into the characters, get to know the characters, all of that. So what does that prep look like to get ready before you actually, you know, turn the mic on and say, okay, I'm ready? Theresa, and then Maria, you can answer the same question.
Yeah, we've touched on this a little. I do think the script prep is part of that, reading the whole book, understanding, again, this gets to what Maria said about understanding the author, really understanding their arc of story and what they had in mind as they were writing. And so that's when it's nice to have a relationship with the author, to know, to be able to run things past them in terms of character choices or even pronunciations. And I think this is something that has struck me many times, is that something that I've said my whole life in one way. I'll be like, wait, that's not how you pronounce that? Or a word that you think makes sense to you, and then it'll come back. So we use this software. I have been lucky enough to use a software, Angela, that catches mistakes. So it looks at the script and it listens to your audio. It's called Positron. And then it sends you a file of all of the ways, all of the places you've made a mistake in your audio. And I am always
super cool.
It is super cool. It's a really nice technology.
I'm so nerdy. I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. Yes, it really is. And it will actually take you right to the mistake so that you can listen to the mistake. Because a lot of times I'll read the mistake and I'll think, there's no way I actually said that, right? Like, I didn't make that mistake. And then you'll click play and you'll listen to it and you'll think, oh, for sure I did. I actually said, you know,
I did.
talking instead of car, like some random, like I think sometimes your brain skips ahead. So it catches those mistakes for you. And then you go in with precision and you make what are called pickups, and you re-record a corrected version, and then you drop that carefully into the audio seamlessly. Instead of having to re-record a big section, you might re-record one sentence and just cut and paste essentially right where it belongs. And that's a time-consuming part of the process, actually.
Wow. Wow. What about you, Maria?
Yeah, same thing. You took the words out of my mouth. When I started narrating, I would like look up common words. Like recently somebody said doer. I was like, doer for dower? Like, I don't know. But like I'm constantly being like, what is happening? And then there's a lot of, you know, foreign language things. So that's part of the prep. And then like I said, accent work. There's a thing called IDEA. It's the dialect database that's free. So if you guys ever want to, they go to the different portions of the country and in this country, and you can listen to numerous people speaking in the accent. So that can be part of the prep as well. There's a thing called I annotate, where you can highlight and you know, mark up your book, and it's all there waiting for you when you record.
I love that. I love that. Guys, there you have it. We are hanging out with audiobook narrators Maria McCann and Theresa Bakken on today. And of course, I know you guys are wondering, yes, you're going to get a live audiobook reading. Maria McCann is going to do us the honors of reading just a little short snippet so you guys can hear a little bit of audiobook narration on today. And Maria, we are ready when you are.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of people that are really fascinated watching us work. So here we go. This is from my Give It To Me book that I was talking about earlier with my fabulous Latina main character. So little one page. Palma changed out of shorts she'd slipped into on that humid day and tried on a summer dress from the mall back in New Mexico. She was broke, but didn't want to look broke. So she hooked on her best gold hoop earrings and a gold bangle. Accessorizing her mall dress made her look more broke. She changed twice before she was back in the plaid Bermudas purchased at the Sam's Club, where Palma was buying a 20-pound bag of dog food for her 40-pound mutt back home. Home was now Albuquerque. She had returned to Chicago, among other reasons, to meet Pepito. Pepito was her little cuz, raised by their grandmother. Little was an expression. She and him together. Abuela told her way long ago that Palma's mother, the grandmother's daughter, had been born under a bad star. That bad star led her to follow a worse guy. Not Palma's father, the old woman assured her, although she never said who he might have been. One day, Palma came to the conclusion that her grandmother hadn't withheld her father's true identity out of spite for her mother, who dumped the girl on her after she was born, but that her abuela truly had not known who he was. Abuela preferred her one and only son and treated him like a baby, still cutting meat for him at the table, useless piece of shit that he was. And that never changed. Even after one day, while in the 7th grade, Palma came home from school and there was a toddler. A duffel bag the girl didn't recognize was by the door. Pepito is going to stay with us for a while, Palma, Abuela said. He's taking your room. My room? The girl said. Where am I going to sleep? With me, in my bed, Abuela said. Palma loved Abuela, but she found the idea of sleeping with a woman who left her teeth in a glass by the side of the bed a very unattractive proposition.
There you have it. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Maria, for reading a little bit of the audio of book. That's a project that is that your current project or what have you? Has
Yes.
this book released already?
Yes, it's out on it's already out on Amazon. It's Ana Castillo, Give It to Me is the name of the book. Dreamscape is producing it, and it's Feminist Press, which my daughter was like, I found Feminist Press and was so impressed with them, so she wrote about them in a report. So anyway, I'm really excited to be doing it.
Great job.
I
Sounds amazing.
love that. I love that. And Helen said, awesome read, Maria. Guys, if you are just joining us, I promise you the time goes by so fast. And I definitely want to say from the Literary Cafe, happy audiobook narration month or appreciation month for both Theresa Bakken and Maria and all of the amazing audiobook narrators out there as well. And I do want to find out from Theresa and Maria, when you think about just the audiobook industry and audiobooks in general, and just being in that community, in that space, what do you enjoy about audiobook narration, Theresa?
Oh my goodness.
It's a loaded question, right?
No, there's so much. I'm trying to hone in on what I want to really say. I think that I have felt very welcomed. I think it's relationship, Angela. Honestly, I feel like in a time when the pandemic first struck and I felt very isolated, I think joining this community of other narrators and connecting to storytellers, because I think it's just the most intimate form of storytelling. It's someone right in your ear, and I think it's timeless. This idea of tell me a story is a welcome thing to everyone's heart, I think, right? Everyone feels that. So it's a privilege to be part of that community and to be able to make the connections that we connect and tell the stories that we get the honor of telling.
I love that. And Maria, I'll let you go next. And before you do, one of the readers wanted to know what was the title again of the book that you was reading from, that you did the narration.
It's Give It to Me by Ana Castillo. So I checked and it was there today. I think you bring up a great point about community. You know what I realize? I'm like, why is everybody so nice? But imagine, Angela, you're in a place where everybody's a book nerd like you. Nobody goes into audiobook narration unless they have a love of reading and a love of books. So you get us all together and we're just kind of like-minded. And there's something about somebody who likes to be alone in their closet reading to themselves for 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day or whatever it is. It's a certain personality type, but like I said, it's acting every day. It's an adventure, going and living other people's lives for short periods of time. So, yeah.
I love that. Well, thank both of you for hanging out with us today here at the cafe to celebrate Audiobook um, Appreciation Month. I'm definitely so appreciative for you guys coming and hanging out with us, talking what it is like to be audiobook narrators as well. And I want for both of you guys, let's see, we're having a little, there we are. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. So I want to allow you guys to have the last words of what you want to say to the people on today. Maria, what is something that you would like to share to wrap up our conversation on today?
I want to share my appreciation for you, Angela, for caring about literary things and writers, and for lifting up a variety of voices and sharing your enthusiasm and welcoming us here. So that is definitely what I want to say. And yeah, if you haven't tried an audiobook, give it a try. It's a wonderful thing when you're cooking, when you're doing all the drudgery, when you're vacuuming, whatever. You can put that thing in your ear with an iPhone and it'll take you away. So, yeah.
Perfect.
I love that. Theresa?
I love that. Oh, I second that. Can I just say ditto to that, Maria? No, I think you're absolutely right. Angela, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we do. I think you asked great questions.
Absolutely.
And I love being able to connect with you because I know you really do love stories. Yes, thanks for being part of what you shine your
and
light
Theresa,
on
thank
authors and
you.
stories.
Thank you so much. And again, Theresa, thank you for introducing me to Maria as well. Again, thank you both for joining us here at the cafe. And of course, we can't leave without you guys sharing with us. How can we stay connected with you, Theresa?
Oh, I'm Theresa Bakken, Narrator, just like the title there on the screen. I have a website that has my samples and has my library in it, but I'm also active. I'm friends with you and follow you on Facebook. You can find me there. You can find me through the Desideratum podcast, also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and anywhere you gather. If you look up Theresa Bakken, Narrator, you can find me. I'd love to talk to anybody about story.
I love that.
And for me also,
Maria, how can we stay connected with you?
I listen to Theresa's podcast on Spotify. So it's really easy if you want to take a break from music to listen to it there. I am the Maria McCann on Instagram, and my website is themariamccann.com because there was an Irish writer, Maria McCann, before me. But yeah, I love to talk to authors, always looking for wonderful pieces to narrate, and am very passionate about acting coaching and narrating coaching. So if anybody ever is wondering if it's something that they might want to try or love and would like some guidance, you can contact me through my website.
I love it. I love it. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Theresa Bakken, Maria McCann, professional audiobook narrators who hung out with us today to help us celebrate June, which is Audiobook Appreciation Month. Again, thank you guys for hopping on the cafe with us on today. Guys, that is our show on today. And of course, as we always say, have an amazing day because we're having an amazing day. And until next time, we'll see you guys later. Go listen to an amazing audiobook. Check out Theresa Bakken's work as well as Maria McCann. And we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.